Hey guys, Silver Underworld here. Tonight, I'm going to read you spooky Valentine's Day stories made by AI. I hope you enjoy. I was a young man named Michael, living in a small town surrounded by dark forest and misty moors. I lived a simple life, working as a bartender and spending my evenings exploring the nearby woods. One Valentine's Day, I met a beautiful but erratic woman named Sarah at my bar. She was charming, flirtatious, and had a wild gleam in her eye that I found both intriguing and frightening. Despite my reservations, Sarah and I started dating. At first, our relationship was intense and passionate, but it wasn't long before I began to realize that Sarah was not the woman that I thought she was. She was prone to sudden mood swings, and her temper was explosive. I found myself constantly walking on eggshells, never knowing what she would lash out on. One night, we were celebrating Valentine's Day in the woods. Sarah's behavior took a turn for the worst. She became unhinged, ranting and raving about a dark presence in the forest. Despite my attempts to calm her, she became increasingly erratic, and I was forced to call the police. The police arrived and took Sarah away, but I soon realized that I was not out of danger. Despite her incarceration, Sarah's spirit began to haunt me, tormenting me with visions of her wild eyes and twisted smile. I became increasingly paranoid and scared, unable to shake the feeling that she was watching me from beyond the grave. I soon discovered that Sarah had been possessed by a dark entity, and that her erratic behavior was a result of this evil force. I became determined to break the curse and free Sarah from this grip, even if it meant putting my own life in danger. With the help of a local priest, I performed an exorcism, freeing Sarah from the dark entity that had taken control of her. I was left shaking, but grateful to save the woman that I loved, and so, Sarah and I started a new life together, our love surviving even the darkest of forces. I was a young man named John, married to my beautiful wife Sarah. We lived in a bustling city, surrounded by towering skyscrapers and bustling streets. One night, we were walking home from a late-night movie. A crazed man walked out from the alley, began to chase us. He was wild-eyed and snarling, wielding a knife in his hand. We ran as fast as we could, dodging through the busy streets and alleyways, trying to escape the maniac. We finally stumbled into an abandoned building, panting and sweating, but our relief was short-lived. As soon as we realized that the crazed man had followed us inside, we finally stumbled into an abandoned building, panting and sweating, but our relief was short-lived. As soon as we realized that the crazed man had followed us inside, we were trapped within nowhere to run and no one to help us. As the man approached us, his knife glinted in the dim light. I realized that this was the end. I was filled with a sense of helplessness and despair, knowing that I would never be able to protect my wife. But as the man lunged at us, I felt a surge of adrenaline and determination. I fought back with all my might, using whatever I could find to fend him off. Despite being outnumbered and outmatched, I refused to give up. Finally, the man was defeated, collapsing to the ground in a lifeless heap. My wife and I were left shaken and traumatized, but also grateful to be alive. We walked home in silence, our hearts pounding with fear, and even now, years later, the memory of that crazed man still haunts us, reminding us of the danger that lurk in the shadows of our city. I was a woman named Emily, married to my abusive husband, David. Every day was a living nightmare, filled with physical and emotional abuse at the hands of the man I thought I loved. On Valentine's Day, I thought that maybe, just maybe, things would be different. I woke up early, filled with hope and excitement, eager to surprise David with breakfast in bed, and a day filled with love and affection. but my hopes were quickly dashed. As soon as David woke up, he flew into a rage, accusing me of ruining his Valentine's Day and never doing anything right. He began to hit me, his blows raining down on me like hail of fire. I tried to fight back to defend myself, but it was no use. David was too strong, too powerful. I was trapped in a cycle of abuse that seemed impossible to break. And then, suddenly, the abuse stopped. David's rage dissipated as quickly as it had come, and he apologized, promising me that he would never hurt me again. But I knew better. I knew that this was just the calm before the storm, and that the abuse would start up again as soon as Valentine's Day was over. And so, I left, packing my bags and leaving my husband behind, determined to never let him hurt me again. Years had passed since Valentine's Day, and I had moved on with my life, finding love and happiness in the arms of a kind and gentle man. But the memories of that dark and abusive time still linger, a reminder of the dangers of giving your heart to the wrong person. I was a woman named Julie, married to my loving husband, Tom. He was the light of my life, and I cherish every moment spent by his side. But one day, tragedy struck. Tom was taken from me suddenly, dying in a car accident that left me shattered and alone. One night, as I was laying in bed, I heard a noise from downstairs. I cautiously made my way down to the living room, where I found a crazed man ransacking my home, looking for valuables to steal. I was left with fear and panic, certain that this was the end. But then, something miraculous happened. I felt Tom's presence, felt his spirit beside me, comforting and protecting me. As the intruder lunged at me, Tom's spirit stepped forward, a ghostly figure that shone with the overworldly light. The intruder recoiled in terror, unable to get to me as Tom's spirit kept him away. Eventually, the intruder fled, leaving me unharmed. I knew that Tom was still with me, still watching over me beyond the grave. And from that day on, I was never afraid again, knowing that my loving husband was always there to protect me, no matter what. I was a woman named Mary, married to a loving husband, Michael. We had been together for many years, and our love only grew stronger within the passing day. One Valentine's Day, I fell ill, my heart failing me. I was rushed to the hospital, where the doctors told me that I needed to do a heart transplant to survive. Michael was by my side every step of the way, refusing to leave me alone in my hour of need. But then, he made a shocking and selfless decision. He offered to donate his heart to me to give me the gift of life. The surgery was a success, and I awoke to find my husband's heart beating inside of me. I was filled with gratitude and love, knowing that a part of Michael was still within me, always. But as the days passed, strange things began to happen. I felt as if I was being consumed by an unknown force, a dark and malevolent entity that threatened to destroy me from within. One night, as I lay in bed, I felt Michael's spirit rise within me. His voice whispered to me in darkness, "You have my heart," he said, "but my heart is not enough. You must let me go." I was filled with terror, realizing that Michael's spirit was trapped within me, bound to his heart, and so I made the difficult but necessary choice to release him, letting his spirit move on to the next world and finally finding peace. Years have passed since that Valentine's Day, and I still feel Michael's love within me, a reminder of the sacrifice he made and the love we shared. And though he is no longer with me in body, his heart will always beat within me, a symbol of our enduring love. I was a woman named Sarah, in love with a man named Jake, whom I met online. We had been talking for months, and I was finally going to meet him in person on Valentine's Day. I arrived at the restaurant, eager to see Jake for the first time, but as soon as I saw him, I knew something was wrong. There was a darkness in his eyes, a sinister aura that made me feel uneasy. As we talked over dinner, I learned that Jake was not who he claimed to be. He told me of his devotion to Satan, of the rituals and sacrifices he performed in the name of his dark lord. I was horrified, trying to make an excuse to leave, but Jake would not let me go. He told me that I was his chosen one, and that I was destined to be his bride and bear his children for Satan. I was trapped, unable to escape Jake's grasp, as he revealed more and more of his twisted beliefs. And then, as the restaurant closed, we were the only ones left. Jake revealed his true intentions. He pulled out a knife, holding it to my throat. As he began to chant in ancient tongue, I was paralyzed with fear, certain that this was the end. But then, miracle happened. The lights flickered and went on, and when they came back on, Jake was gone. I was alone, unharmed and shaken to my core. I never spoke of what happened on Valentine's Day, never telling a soul of the horror I faced. But I will never forget the fear that I felt, the evil that I encountered, and the love that I lost. I was a popular YouTuber named Rachel, known for my makeup tutorials and vlogs. I had a large and dedicated following, but one fan stood out among the rest. His name was Tyler. He seemed harmless at first. He would leave comments on my videos, complimenting me and expressing his admiration for my work. But then, Tyler's messages became more frequent and intense. He would ask when I was going to be in town, how I was doing, and even what I was wearing. I started to feel like I was being watched. I brushed it off thinking Tyler was an overzealous fan, but on Valentine's Day, everything changed. I received a bouquet of roses and a note from Tyler, inviting me to meet him. I was hesitant, but curiosity got the best of me. I agreed to meet Tyler at a park nearby my house, but as soon as I saw him, I knew I had made a terrible mistake. His eyes were filled with madness, and he was clutching a knife. He told me that he loved me, and that he was my biggest fan, and that he would do anything to be with me. I tried to run, but Tyler was too fast. He chased me through the park, his knife glinting in the moonlight. I was trapped, with nowhere to escape from my crazed stalker. But then, something miraculous happened. A group of my fans appeared, having followed me to the park to protect me. They overpowered Tyler, calling the police, and saved me from his grasp. I never forgot that Valentine's Day. I faced my biggest fear, and the day my fans showed me their love and support. From that day on, I made sure to always be cautious of who I interact with online. It was Valentine's Day, and my husband and I decided to take a trip into the woods. We wanted to escape the hustle and bustle of the city life and spend some quality time together with our dog. As soon as we arrived, we knew something was wrong. The air was cold and still, and there was something unsettling in the silence of the woods. As we walked deeper into the forest, we heard a strange howling in the distance. My husband tried to brush it off, saying that it was probably a coyote, but I could tell that he was uneasy. Suddenly, out of nowhere, a monster appeared. It was a Wendigo, a creature from Native American folklore, known for its insatiable hunger and cannibalistic ways. My husband was no match for the Wendigo, and it quickly overpowered him. I was horrified, watching in terror as the monster prepared to devour my husband. But then, something miraculous happened. Our family dog, a golden retriever named Max, stepped forward to protect us. But as I watched in disbelief, Max transformed into another monster, one even more terrifying than the Wendigo. Max fought the Wendigo. Their growls and snarls filled the air, and after what seemed like an eternity, Max emerged victorious, his fur matted with the Wendigo's blood. My husband and I were safe, but I will never forget the horror of that Valentine's Day. The love of my family and the courage of our dog saved us from the clutches of the Wendigo, and I will always be grateful for the love that surrounds us, even in the darkest moments. It was Valentine's Day, and my husband and I decided to go camping in the woods. We wanted to spend some quality time together and escape from the chaos of city life. But as soon as we arrived, things took a dark turn. My husband was shot by a group of 10 men who had been terrorizing for the forest for months. I was horrified, watching in disbelief as my husband lay lifeless on the ground. Just as I thought all hope was lost, something miraculous happened. My husband's body began to convulse and contort, his wounds healing before my eyes. And then he transformed into a werewolf. His eyes were filled with fierce determination. He stood protectively in front of me, ready to face the 10 aggressive men who threatened our safety. The men approached us, weapons raised, but my husband was not intimidated. He moved quickly, and he fought with ferocity, tearing through the attackers one by one. I watched in awe, my love for my husband growing stronger by every passing moment. Finally, the last attacker was defeated. The forest was quiet again. My husband turned back to a human, and I threw my arms around him, grateful for his love and protection. That Valentine's Day, I learned that love can conquer even the darkest of fears, and I will always be grateful for the love that surrounds us, even in the most dangerous of situations. It was Valentine's Day, and my husband and I decided to go to Italy for a romantic getaway. We were so excited to explore the beautiful country and spend some quality time together. But our trip took a terrifying turn when I was kidnapped by a bad guy. I was hurt and scared, not knowing what was going to happen to me. I felt helpless and alone. But later that night, I heard a loud crash. Suddenly, my husband appeared, ready to save me. He had tracked my iPhone to find me, and now was engaged in a fierce fist fight with the bad guy. The man was no match for my husband's determination and love for me. After the fight, my husband wanted us to run away, to get as far from the danger as possible. But I couldn't let the bad guy get away from hurting me. I wanted revenge. So I kicked the bad guy in the head hard, making sure he was never going to be able to hurt anyone ever again. My husband and I escaped, grateful for each other's love and bravery. That Valentine's Day, I learned that love can give us the strength to face even the greatest of fears. And I will always be grateful for the love that surrounds us, even in the darkest of moments. Thank you guys so much for watching and listening. If you have a favorite story, please tell me in the comments below. Happy Valentine's Day. For the rest of the video, please enjoy the rain.